Most people plan their life in 1 year chunks, budgets, goals, holidays, maybe a promotion, but careers, money, health, family, they just don't change in a year. They change over decades. If you only ever think 1 year ahead, life becomes reactive. You deal with whatever's in front of you, but you rarely feel you're actually going somewhere. So in this video, we're going to be thinking about, the next 10 years, not in loads of detail and not with predictions, but with some direction. Most drifting isn't laziness, it's mainly lack of structure. When there's no long-term view, decisions get made in isolation. Things like year's priorities or year's budgets. Each choice feels reasonable on its own, but over time they add up to a life that you just didn't design. So the first step isn't about motivation, it's about stepping far enough back, enough to see the whole picture. Now, I don't think about the future as one big goal. I think about it across a few non-negotiable areas. So for me, those are health, because energy underpins everything we do. Family, which is relationships, stability and home life. Money, which is security, options and reduced stress. Career, your skills, fulfillment, the income you're making. Time and lifestyle, how life actually feels day to day. Income and growth, who I'm becoming over time. These aren't goals. If you ignore one for too long, it shows up later, usually in a way that's harder to fix. So we're going to design this backwards. Once we've defined our pillars and they're clear, we're going to draw a simple ladder. 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year today. Now, this isn't about predicting the future. It's about a bit of direction. So for example, let's just take money as an example. So 10 years, what do we want that to look like? We want financial security, maybe, flexibility, some options, definitely no consumer debt, solid savings, investing habits. Maybe could jump into year 3, maybe the system's in place, we've got some clarity and consistency. And a new one, we're automating, tracking, fewer leaks. And today, well, we can take one small action that moves things forward. So a decade becomes manageable when you stop trying to fix everything at once and come up with a plan over that period of time. Now, this is something people rarely talk about because real progress over a decade doesn't feel linear. The earlier years definitely feel slower because you're just building the habits and you're learning and you're setting systems. Things won't feel that impressive yet, and you might not necessarily notice it or feel like it's worth the effort. But then later, I promise, things start to feel easier. Not because you worked harder, but because early decisions will start to compound. Most people quit in the slow phase because they expect visible results way too early. Now, understanding this stops you from thinking you're failing when you're actually just laying the foundations. One thing I've noticed is that progress feels hardest when your time is going one way, your money's going another, and who you want to become, sits somewhere else, or you're not being who you want to be. When those three aren't aligned, everything feels like effort. When they support each other, it feels so much more simple. Time is spent intentionally, money supports your values, and identity grows naturally. You don't need to perfect the balance. So once you have a rough 10-year direction, the 1 year plan makes more sense, and you can start asking, what would move me slightly closer to the life I want in 10 years? That shift alone changes how you make decisions. You don't need to know exactly where you'll be in 10 years' time. You just need direction. You need to design the decade and the yearly plans and stop feeling random.